Hi everyone, welcome to the MrpTech Podcast. This is episode 81. My name is Matt, and this is the weekly podcast discussing everyday tech for everyday people. Wow, today is a crazy day. Today is December 15th, and there's been a whole lot going on today. First of all, we got the premiere of Star Wars that's happening tonight. I've got my tickets for that, and so I'm really excited to see episode 8 of the Star Wars franchise episodes. And it just so happens that we purchased our tickets for the concert, and all of a sudden I started seeing online advertisements that they were advertising free tickets to the showing that I was going to. And it turns out there was a banking company that purchased all the tickets for the show and basically are giving out free tickets to the Star Wars series. So we are, I'm sure it's going to be a sold out show tonight. And I'm wondering how that's going to work. If you already bought your tickets, if they're going to give you a free pass, or how that works. I've tried calling the movie company, and they've explained it to me a couple times how it works. So basically, they've sold 79 tickets to the movies tonight, and they have 69 tickets left. That company's going to come in and buy out all the remaining tickets. And hopefully we'll get refunded our amount, since this company is it's a relatively new bank in town, and I think they're just kind of doing it as an advertising scheme to draw in some customers. So free tickets to Star Wars, that's pretty awesome. Also today we had some students showing up here, and we got them to watch a SpaceX rocket launch today. It had been pushed back a couple of days. It was supposed to be on Monday, got pushed to Tuesday, then got pushed to Friday. So not only do we have Star Wars today, but we also got to watch a SpaceX launch and landing here today as well. And another thing that's been happening this week, if you listen to the previous episodes of this podcast, one of the things that I've been working on is the technology group here at my school district. And with that, I recently went to a local radio club and discussed with the members about building a radio station here at the school for our students. And with overwhelming support from this club, after just a few minutes of explaining what I wanted to do, they went actually above and beyond, not only providing us with some antennas, and they're looking for radios to sort of loan to us, but they're also going to install what's called an IRLP node, giving us access to radio over voice over IP. And so students will be able to talk with anyone in the world with that radio setup. So we're going to be probably in mid-January, we're going to be set up for some really awesome projects for the students here at the school. And I've got a senior who's learning some information on radio stuff, and he's made it his mission to contact the International Space Station and have a conversation with some astronauts. So we're going to do our best to see if that can happen later on this year. So it's been a really crazy week. A lot of really interesting things have happened since Monday. So the thing that I wanted to talk to you all today about is something that I wasn't expecting on finding. I found probably late last week, on maybe Friday night. My wife and I were out to dinner, and we were going to go for a walk at the local mall afterwards. And I just happened to open Facebook, and I saw a post by one of my cousins who's a game enthusiast, and happened to pick up the SNES Classic that was just released recently. It's very difficult to get. And over the last few weeks, we've seen them in Best Buy several times in limited stock, and they're usually gone within about an hour or two. So it was good timing, and we were on the way to the mall anyway. And so I walked into Best Buy, and sure enough, there was 3 SNES Classics left, and it was sort of an impulse buy. And I decided to pick one up because I had some relatives who may have been interested in maybe selling them, that type of thing. And for me, it wasn't really about that. I just wanted to see what it was all about. So I picked up a SNES Classic at Best Buy for $79. And I didn't really know a whole lot about it because it's been a very long time since I've been playing games. And I used to have an SNES a long time ago. And I had some very favorite games of mine that I would like to play back in the early 90s. Some of those like Super Tecmo Bowl and like the Mortal Kombat franchise when I was a teenager. That was things that I was really into. And I knew the SNES, all the games came pre-installed on this Classic Edition, and just wanted to give it a shot and see what it was all about. So we took it out of the box, and I wasn't expecting all that much from it. Basically, they've shrunk it down. You can hold it into the palm of your hands. Comes with 2 classic Super Nintendo controllers. So it really brings you way back to that era when playing Nintendo games. Comes with all sorts of really great games built in, like Final Fantasy III and Kirby, Mega Man, Super Mario World, Star Fox, and a previously unreleased version of Star Fox 2. Super Mario Kart is in there, Legend of Zelda, Super Metroid, Punch-Out!, which is one of my favorites growing up. Probably about 20 games pre-installed. And so we took it out of the box. We hooked it up to our, I think we have a 32-inch or maybe a 38-inch flat screen TV. And so the first thing that we noticed is the controller the controllers have to be plugged into the SNES just like you would back in the day, but the cables for the controllers are not very long at all. So in this case, on a high an HD TV, having to sit within 3 feet of the TV was sort of a little trippy, and we had to. I could only play it for so long without feeling a little nauseated from being so close to the TV and all the motion that's happening. That was one of the drawbacks that I found from the Classic itself. Once we turned it on, we played Donkey Kong Country. That was another one of my favorites growing up, and we were sort of surprised to see that on a big screen TV, it really didn't do a very much justice, going back to either the 8-bit or the 16-bit games that whatever it was for the Super Nintendo. The graphics, not so much, was what bothered me. It was the resolution on a high definition screen that I had issues sort of with. And it's, looking back, we had an old Nintendo Wii a long time ago. It didn't seem like we had that problem, so they must have done some sort of upscaling or up-converting to match, for high definition videos with the Wii. When you were to purchase some of those retro games through the Wii, so there was definitely a difference between the classic Super Nintendo games on the Wii compared to this Classic edition. So looking at it, one of the first things that I wanted to do is I wanted to put more games on it. I was expecting there to be some sort of way to download more games or something like that. And not from Nintendo, you can't. There is a hack that a Russian developer has made so that you can install ROMs on the SNES Classic. The legalities of that are fairly unclear. A lot of people say that if you own the actual games, then you can have a copy of a ROM. I don't see how that actually works. Just sort of like, you can actually have a copy of a CD and digital file as a backup. Technically, it's supposed to be your backup, so I don't see how the legality works for ROMs. Very difficult to manage through copyright law. So you can install more games. I didn't actually end up doing that. One of my favorite things, I did play Punch-Out! For a while. That was really fun to bring it back. We played a little bit of Super Mario. Tried to do Star Fox 2, but you needed to pass the first level in Star Fox to unlock Star Fox 2, and I was always terrible at Star Fox. So I did not get to try the new Star Fox 2. But one thing I did play a little bit of The Legend of Zelda, which I never got into as a kid. But this time around, it was kind of fun. Played through a few levels of that. And really, if you're interested in something like the SNES Classic, the nostalgia factor is what gets everyone to buy these. And definitely is a nostalgia thing. I brought back a lot of great memories of playing the Super Nintendo with these games. No game cartridges to take out and blow the dust out of, that's for sure. Everything's pre-installed. But it was fun to give it a shot for a little while and play through some of these games I haven't played in 20 years. One of the things that I found out is, as I went through and started using this, when I first plugged in the controllers, I looked at the adapter. It just isn't all that great. You have a mock-up of what the old controller inputs used to look like. You have to take out a panel and then plug in the controllers. And the first time I looked at them, they looked familiar, but I couldn't place my finger on it. Turns out they're actually the same type of inputs that the Wii Classic controllers use. So you can actually use a Wii Classic controller on this SNES Classic. And we tried that too. Worked great. There was no issues there. So if you wanted a slightly bigger controller, the reason I did that, I thought the Wii Classic controllers may have had longer cables, but that turns out that is not the case. The cables were actually shorter than the Super Nintendo controllers, because on the Wii you actually plug the Classic controllers into the Wii remote, and then you have the somewhat wireless capability there. You can get and purchase Bluetooth controllers that look similar to the SNES Classic controllers. You can buy those online. I think they're about $20. I did not do that, but I have heard that they do work on the SNES Classic. So if you're interested in having a wireless capability, you can use controllers that are basically USB dongles or Bluetooth connections of some kind. After I had it for about a week, we were deciding whether or not we were actually going to keep it. It was kind of an impulse buy, and ultimately we actually ended up returning the SNES Classic. Now, I don't have a whole lot of time to play a lot of games, so really the $79 investment wasn't really something that I wanted to spend. And in fact, I've heard a lot about RetroPie with the Raspberry Pis, and I'm almost thinking going that route might be even better than, say, the SNES Classic. Again, the legalities of that are a little unclear. I'm not even sure I'm going to do that at this point. But it was fun to play for about a week, just to kind of reminisce a little bit about the SNES. And so we did return it. We brought it back to Best Buy. And I'm sure somebody else who has a little bit more time to play these games, somebody else would enjoy it much better than say I would. But it is a miniature Super Nintendo system. It's got 21 pre-loaded games. Connects to your TV through an HDMI cable, and has a USB AC adapter. It does come with a manual as well too. So a lot packed in this little box that comes with just about everything that you need. So does anybody else have the SNES Classic out there? I'd love to hear what you have done with it. Have you done the hack where you can add more games? And let me know what you think of all the old games. And I'd be real curious if anybody else is playing other ROMs on there. Had I kept it longer, I probably would have flashed it so that I could add more games. But I didn't want to brick it right away. I've heard that you have the success rate is pretty good for adding more games on it. And I guess since the parts are very similar to the classic Nintendo that came out last year, the developer had a really easy time sort of porting it over to the new SNES Classic. So that's what I've heard as far as everything with this new iteration of Super Nintendo. other than a nostalgia factor, I really don't think it's worth the $79 that it's being put out for. And the other thing is, you go on eBay and you see lots of people trying to sell it for $150 because it's such high demand. But really, I'm not seeing a lot of people paying that premium price for it. So those people that resell things to try to make lots of money, I'm not seeing it happen with the Super Nintendo. It's all nostalgia factor, and people that are nostalgic about these things, they're gonna purchase these no matter what, and they're not gonna really listen to a whole lot of criticism. I would have liked to have seen the games in better quality, and I don't mean that in the sense that they're old games, but the screen resolution on high definition TVs just was not great, and there was a big difference between the power of, say, the Nintendo Wii versus this Classic Edition. So that was the biggest drawback. But we did get used to it after a few days, and it was fun, really taking a look at some games I had never played or played very infrequently. And other than that, there's really not a whole lot more I can comment on the SNES other than that. So my recommendation is save your money and do something else with it. It's cool for a little while, but I did not have a good experience with it. And, back when we played the Super Nintendo, we had, 15-inch televisions, and we were able to sit much closer to the TV to see it better. Nowadays, with the bigger screens, I feel I have to sit back from the bigger screens. So being up and so close to the TVs just wasn't a delightful experience by any means. Don't mean to come down on the SNES Classic, but I guess I had some expectations that I would have a better experience, and I was expecting to be able to do more than I actually could. The one kind of cool feature, it doesn't really work right, is the ability to sort of move back or replay certain levels. I think you can go back up to a minute of previous playtime. You can also use that as sort of like a screensaver. Works okay, not really, again, a great experience. I think overall it could have been done in a much better way. So there it is, a real quick review of the SNES Classic. I really don't have a whole lot more to say on that other than it wasn't what I expected. And moving along now, I want to take the last few minutes of this podcast today to talk about some new things that I've been trying online. And so with these new things that I'm trying, I wanted to talk about the website, mrptechreviews.com. And basically my idea is, if I can find a way without being overly intrusive to make a couple of dollars here and there, that will sort of, I don't want to say make it worth it, but keep encouraging me to keep going, keep doing things. I love doing podcasting, and I don't actually like to put out there, hey, donate to this, donate to me, donate to me. I don't really want to do that. I appreciate all the support that I've gotten over the last few months, and I take what I do very seriously. And my approach to this has always been to have fun, and I do have fun every single time I record a podcast. And ultimately, that's exactly what I want to be doing, is just having fun with this. So I'm trying out the Amazon affiliate program on my website. Occasionally, I'll post links to Amazon. I don't really want to do this a whole lot, but if you do happen to go to the website, mrptechreviews.com, and you want to support this podcast, just click on the Amazon link. You'll see the Amazon button on the right. Anything you buy from Amazon, I'll get a kickback, a small percentage back. If you happen to think about it, that would be great. If not, that's okay too. Just something I'm trying out. Not everybody wants to donate money. And the Amazon affiliate seemed like a fun thing to try. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, I'm going to keep doing the podcast because this is just a whole lot of fun for me to do. As I mentioned last week, I sort of have, I do have a Patreon page that I'm don't usually announce very often. It's in the show notes. you can take a look at that. But I do want to say, more than anything, the best way to support is just to talk and recommend this podcast or other podcasts from Podnuts. Recommend this podcast to other people. If you know any students or people who, that are interested and want to learn more about technology, just mention the show to them. That would mean more to me than a donation. I'm a guy that likes to sort of follow stats and things like that. And I have seen a sort of steady climb of listenership of this podcast. And I just want to let you guys know that I really appreciate that very much. That means more to me than actually money does. So I'm glad that you guys enjoy the show. Give me some ideas for tech topics. You can go to mrptechreviews.com, hit the contact form. You can also go to podnuts.com. If you want to give someone a donation and donate to a network, not just a show, I would recommend making a contribution to Podnuts because they take care of everything on the back end. The Door-to-Door Geek takes care of everything for me. Once I edit the show, I send it to him. He does all the hosting. He does all the posting. And so I have got to give him credit where credit is due. We're sort of rounding up 2018. I'm going to try to sneak in another show next week. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. And then I'm going to be probably off air for a week, so before the new year. So thanks everybody for listening to this show. Send me your thoughts on show topics. If you have comments about any of the shows, whether it's SNES Classic or anything else, you can just send me a message from my website. I'd be glad to hear from you and talk over some things and put them things on the show. So that is probably going to do it for this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.